De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio. Ended up being a bigger deal than we expected. Zach LaVine to Sacramento, and the Bulls are getting dunked on for their role in this trade, facilitating it, not necessarily getting that much, but they did get Kevin Huerter. So shout out to Kevon Huerter. But with everything that kind of went down, I immediately thought about, you got 40-year-old LeBron with 25-year-old Luka in LA. You got 40-year-old, soon to be 40-year-old Chris Paul with 27-year-old De'Aaron Fox. Remember those Sports Illustrated covers when it was Kobe and D'Lo, Cat and KG, randomly LaMarcus Aldridge and Tim Duncan, who weren't that far apart in age. The other one didn't age that well. It was D Wade and Justice Winslow, but still, this is kind of like the new era version of it. Even in a weird way, maybe AD and Derek Lively II. So like kind of seeing like these guys in their new situations and heir apparents. But I say all that to say, Wemby and De'Aaron Fox, the Spurs kept Stephon Castle. They kept their Hawks pick. Big win for them, and I'm excited to see what this means for San Antonio making a run down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, kept Keldon Johnson, like kept a lot of the guys that people thought were going to have to be included in this deal in order to make it work. And it's like, I don't really understand how the Bulls were ever like, yes, this is the deal for us to move Zach LaVine.
Sign us up.
Even on the flip side of that, like the Kings got Zach LaVine and 6 draft picks. Like they got 3 first rounders. And yes, they gave up the best player in the deal, but they also returned the second best player in the deal and got the best haul of draft picks. And the only piece of value, with all due respect to my guy, Kevin Huerter and Trey Jones, like them both a lot as players, the Bulls got their own draft pick in return.
They got it back.
They had already traded off. They got their draft pick back. So they didn't even acquire an additional asset. It's like, how the same way that a lot of people were like, I tried the Luka AD trade on 2K and they declined it. Like that would have just popped up like, we are not interested in this trade if you were the Chicago Bulls on 2K. There's no way that should.
You might have got kicked out of GM mode for that one.
Fired. Yeah, you actually got fired from your own GM mode on 2K for even trying to accept this trade. De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio, we talked about it last week. I wanted to see this move so bad. Like, I just think that him and Wemby is such a dynamic fit together. The way that Fox is one of the fastest ball handlers in the league in the different ways that they can, kind of utilize pick and rolls. I mean, I heard Chinea Gumake was on ESPN last night, and she said that I think it was Chris Paul and Wemby were the number 1 pick and roll pairing in the league, and then it was De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis was number 2. So now Wemby has 2 of the most productive pick and roll players in the league at his disposal. And then I saw another good point by somebody else that it was like Victor Wembanyama comes into the league, right? And the Spurs are very bad right away, but he shows plenty of promise. And then they go out and they bring in Chris Paul, they bring in Harrison Barnes, they bring in De'Aaron Fox. Like they draft Stephon Castle. Like they waste absolutely no time to put a winning caliber team around Wemby. I give them a ton of credit for taking a swing at the deadline in getting a player of Fox's caliber when maybe they could have been like, you know what? We can stand pat. We can be patient. We're not in a rush. Fox wants to come to us in free agency, potentially a year or 2 down the line anyway. Like, we can wait it out. They were like, no, we're going to go get this guy. We're going to try and make a push for the playoffs. I think it's going to be a great fit. I think Fox and Wemby is going to be one of the most dynamic pairings in the league. And I'm very, very excited to see what those two look like playing off each other.
I like the way you put that, because this is a model example of how to build around a generational talent, straight up. Like, and it's funny because, to kind of swing it back for a quick moment with Luka, the Mavs tried a lot of different things before they finally found the formula, but the fact that they were still successful throughout that speaks to how good Luka is. So this might not necessarily be the home run that we think it is right now, but we both agree and think that Victor Wembanyama is that good that they can continue to try to figure out and find the right formula. This guy is 21 years old and is probably already a top 5 player in the NBA. And now you have this window of the fact that he's going to be a top 5 player in the NBA until further notice. Like, we will be having this conversation in 2035 saying, this dude is still a top 10 player in the NBA. He just turned 31, which is crazy to think. Like 10 years from now, like Victor Wembanyama will be firmly in his prime and will be younger than Anthony Davis is right now. So how's that to kind of blow your mind a little bit? So they're trying this now. They have a young guy in De'Aaron Fox. And I know I mentioned like kind of in jest a Sports Illustrated cover, but like this is a guy who now gets to learn some of the tricks of the trade from Chris Paul, one of the best to ever do it. And, depending on what they continue to do, like this is going to be a destination that people want to go play at. And they have 2 pillars in place right now. And there's a reason why this Spurs franchise is as excellent as it has been consistently since Greg Popovich took over in the mid-90s, and they had David Robinson and Tim Duncan, and the list goes on with all the legends that have played for them now. Interesting, De'Aaron Fox wearing number 2, first to wear it for the Spurs since Kawhi Leonard. So that's also a little interesting footnote with that stuff. But I'm big on just building around a guy, a top 5 guy, top 7 guy, whatever you want to say about Wembanyama, on a rookie contract. It's going to be really exciting, similar to what I said about Dallas and their place in the Western Conference standings, to see the type of run that the Spurs make towards the end of the season. Big thing we talked about, big issue they've been having is in clutch time. Well, how about patching that issue up with a former clutch player of the year? Like, they've had some woes down the stretch of the game. And eventually Victor Wembanyama is going to be the guy, but he's still figuring that out. De'Aaron Fox is going to be that guy. I love it for them.
Yeah, said it last week. No player in the last 3 years has more clutch points than De'Aaron Fox, and he's someone that is extremely confident handling the ball in those situations. And I love like what they're building with him and Stephon Castle and Victor Wembanyama as like a big 3 per se, at least for right now. And I agree with you that there's more moves to come in San Antonio, and they're going to be active in free agency, and it's a destination now, and people are going to want to play with Fox and Wemby. I can't wait to watch that team play. But I do have a question for you as we're wrapping up here. So Luka Doncic gets traded. No one in a million years would have guessed that Luka Doncic would be available. We got, like you said, 72 hours, roughly 3 days until the trade deadline. Who is the one star that you think that has not been reported, no mention, nothing? One star that you think could get moved that nobody sees coming between now and Thursday?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I've been speculating a little bit. Ever since the Luka thing happened, it just shows you that you never say never in the NBA now. And maybe this isn't unfounded, but I got my eyes on Memphis, Ja Morant.
Wow.
Thursday, TNT, no Ja, big win for the Grizzlies. Sunday, ESPN, no Ja, big win for the Grizzlies. They're doing a real big push. Jaren Jackson, face of the franchise. Jaren Jackson, face of the franchise. All-star. Desmond Bane. Whatever. And I don't want to read too much into it. This could be much ado about nothing, and this could be a cold take that gets revisited. But, the way we're seeing maybe is a little bit of a different shake on how we're valuing point guards and what they bring to the table. And you can get some big value for that and flesh out your roster and figure out some other holes. And they're nowhere near on the same level. Like, respect to both guys I'm mentioning, but Scottie Pippen Jr. is playing his tail off. Like, they got some guys on that roster. You know what I mean? So if they can bring another guy in and just kind of do that by committee, I would not be completely surprised, because just as of late, just kind of strange vibes I've picked up on what's going on, and not necessarily strange in a negative way, just like maybe it's time for a clean break. And we could revisit this. Ja could be back playing, and I could look silly for saying this, but my brain's been going with this for like the last 24 hours. When they beat Milwaukee on ESPN last night, it was when I really started thinking this. I don't know if you had somebody in mind that spurred that question for you, but that was mine.
You know what? That is a better answer than I ever could have imagined, because Ja is not the player that I thought you were going to say, but I love the take, and I actually, I don't hate it. And hey, you know what? There's no such thing as a cold take in this sense, because I'm just asking you to make a prediction out of the complete blue, because again,
right.
if you had got on the pod last Thursday and said Luka Doncic is going to get traded, we would have had to end the podcast and
we would have lost subscribers.
Right, exactly. So anything is on the table. Mine was a little bit more of a safe take, especially compared to Ja. And for me, that player is Joel Embiid.
Okay.
There's some similarities between the situation with Luka and with Joel Embiid, where it seems like the front office is a little bit frustrated, or at least from reports, a little bit frustrated with his lack of availability, his lack of conditioning. He's never available when they need him most in the playoffs. They're trying to, load manage him so he is ready for those moments, but somehow something always seems to pop up when it matters most, and he's not eligible to play. I don't necessarily think that it's something that's going to happen, but it's just something where now that Luka has been traded, there's almost no notification that can come across your screen that is more surprising than that one. And if Joel Embiid all of a sudden is traded before Thursday's deadline, yes, it would be mind-blowing. Yes, it would shake NBA Twitter to its core again. But at the same time, I would be like, I don't know, it kind of lines up. Now, I don't have a destination in mind for him or anything like that, but he's just it's that caliber of player that comes to my mind. And I'm pumped that you said Ja. That's a great answer. Those types of caliber players that maybe it's not all that ridiculous to think that between now and Thursday, someone like that could get moved.
Yeah, basically that's what it is. Never say never anymore. And I think the Joel Embiid type deal could be a Kawhi type deal, right? Where like obviously there was a lot of like dissension between both parties and it resulted in like he just got to go. But like there was some frustration from the Spurs with how things were handled. And it just resulted in the surprise with that was that we never thought the Raptors would get involved in something like that. And they did. And it also happened at like 4:30 in the morning. And we just all woke up to something like that. So this league, you never know. And like we said, with Luka Doncic now, nothing is out of the realm of possibility. However, you guys caught this or checked this out. We appreciate you listening, and please make sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, on YouTube at NBA Sound System Canada, and on Instagram. Follow us at NBA Sound System Canada. For Kyle Living, my name is Gil McGregor. Let's see how wild this trade deadline can get.